Mr. Nasir Jones, aka Nasty Nas, has just been approved, him and his investment group, to build what's going to be or expand into what's going to be the largest casino in the United States in Queens, borough of New York City. You may have been hearing that Jay-Z was just turned down. So Jay-Z's group proposed their casino in the Broadway theater district, which, to replace Broadway with casinos is like, to even have that as an idea, to me sounds horrible. There was a lot of pushback against that, but Nas's group was approved. So these are just some thoughts off the top of my head. I find it interesting. And again, these are complicated, big historical processes. Not here to tell you what to think. Just it's something interesting to think about. Whatever your conclusions you come up with are your own. But black people in gambling in the United States have been very intertwined and go back. And as I finish up soon to be next masterpiece documentary, Beyond Street Dreams, with Courtney Brown and Lewis from Motown Mafia, been doing a lot of studying of the whole arc of 20th century and 21st century, not just drug dealing, but underworld economics in the black community and how it tangent with the mafia and other things. But of course, gambling, the numbers, was started, as best we can tell. I mean, there was always gambling in history all around the world, but playing the numbers specifically, which led to the state lottery, which everyone getting comfortable with that, has led to casinos being everywhere and sports gambling. It was created by black people in New York, Chicago, even more so if you didn't know. The Chicago policy kings were some of the richest, not black people, they were some of the richest people in the United States in the 1910s, 20s, very early documentation I saw from FBI report in the late 1920s of white gangsters going to black numbers racketeers and asking them for backing and permission to get into the illegal gambling business, because the black people, at least in that area, in some part of Philadelphia, they were the ones with the money and the system already set up. So, this is kind of a full circle thing now, but is it good or is it bad? I mean, that's the question. I think a lot about the viceification of American society, right? Things that were vices. Gambling been the lifeblood of organized crime, even before drugs and alcohol. And no matter what's going on with drugs or anything else, gambling is always there. Gambling leads to also the mafia and now legal racketeers, the payday loan people's other lifeblood, which is giving out loans at exorbitant interest, which often comes from losing at gambling. Oh, you lost your rent money? Well, I'll give you the rent money, but I'm gonna give you $300 today and you owe me $600 in 7 days. Or these check cashing, payday advance places now that have they're the legal version of that. So what is the legacy is this the legacy of hip hop? The alcohol and gambling. I mean, is that good? Is that bad? Is it just part of the American system and it doesn't really matter? You can rest assured that, Nas and Jay-Z's parts in these investments were small. They were there to have a black face and to assuage elements of the black community when they're trying to get, of course, there's tax abatements and all type of stuff involved in this. But does the black community benefit? Black people gamble at a rate above average in the United States. What is going to come back? I mean, are people that are already, Jay-Z's supposedly already a billionaire. I know Nas, I don't know, is probably worth several $100 million. Are these the businesses that, I mean, Jay-Z has always professed himself to pretty much be an unabashed capitalist until he started to get some, till they came up with the plan to marry him to Beyonce and make them into, this power couple that can sell products. Yeah, I mean, a lot of money has been taken out of Black America in gambling. How much is going back in? Is it good or bad? We just saw Diddy, one of the other very rich people, he used his... Remember, hip-hop, something that came originally was supposed to be the voice of the streets, the downtrodden. It was for... Well, it was made by black people to, partially, I mean, it's to have fun as music, but also to talk about different social ills and etc. And then in the end, as certain rappers become so culturally important, they use that to build casinos. As we know from Jay-Z's entree into sports, they used his name to move when they built that stadium for the Nets, if you didn't know, in Brooklyn. That was a historically black community. What was it, like Fort Greene and whatever other neighborhood there in Brooklyn? And New York has rent control, and it's hard to get people out of apartments they're in unless you do economic eminent domain, so they got Jay-Z on board. Everyone was thinking Jay-Z's part owner of the Nets. I mean, he was, but he owned literally like a tenth of 1% or a half of 1% or very small amount, but it helped getting the community, that traditionally black community and some groups, to sign off and not cause a problem. Now, I can tell you from personal knowledge in Detroit, speaking of Beyond Street Dreams, Courtney Brown Jr., who partnered with a guy, a banker from Angola. Angola is a country on the Atlantic coast of Africa that has oil, and they're looking to diversify their economy. Courtney Brown and this guy had a really cool, viable business. I don't want to mispronounce the word NZ Nzanga, whatever, coffee, where they were the only African/black farm to cup. So they owned land in Angola. They were growing the coffee beans, roasting it, turning it into coffee, and had retail outlets. They were selling it in the coffee. They didn't own a store, but they were selling the coffee to retail outlets, and you could buy it on their website. And they were doing pretty well. And Courtney Brown sits on the board of some, maybe, I don't know if they some organizations in downtown Detroit that have land that was needed as part of the stadium development. The Red Wings, hockey, a sport that mostly white people go and watch. They needed some black community leaders and groups and property owners in downtown to go along with the project. Courtney was one of the black business people that was given a dog and pony show where they said, oh, well, help us get this passed, and see this storefront right here? You can have a retail for your coffee. And, whatever small amount of help Courtney gave, and, Courtney's a smart guy. I'm sure he knew that these big development deals are complicated, but they make a lot of promises they got to put together. They got to make sure the environmentalists aren't going to complain, the neighborhood people. There's a lot they got to do. Long story short, Courtney Brown does not have a retail coffee outlet where they told him he would. Once construction broke and there was too much momentum for it to stop, it just was never, as my father would say, it was quietly never mentioned again. So, what promises have been made to who in Queens to get this thing passed? I don't know. The Broadway, if you didn't know, Broadway, the New York Theater District, makes a lot of damn money. That has strong unions. They blocked it. I'm not sure. I didn't research what neighborhood. I'm sure some of you New York people know what neighborhood in Queens that what's now going to be the world's biggest casino, wow, is going. I'm sure Nas's involvement. I mean, he's a business owner. He has money. I mean, he's an investor. He has his own money. It's not that he's just put on it as a face. I mean, he has his own money in it, and he's a legitimate, successful business person. But I'm sure part of it is strategy, because putting together big business projects is always, it's like politics. You got to put together, oh, we can get a few votes here and a few votes there, make a promise here, tell a lie over there. But, you know, hip-hop has been, and rappers have really been supported as the voice of a group of people in the United States that, let's just say, hasn't always gotten its appropriate cut of the economic pie. So is giving some rappers parts of casinos in a industry, gambling, that, I mean, gambling, again, obviously wasn't invented by black people, but in modern America, the numbers, the first big gambling thing that generated a lot of money was started by black people and was taken at gunpoint with murder by the Italians in New York and in Chicago. I actually have a personal connection to several different of Detroit's formerly very large black numbers people. I know a lot about the interplay between the mafia and the black racketeers in Detroit. The Detroit people were able, the mob had a huge numbers thing in Detroit, but there was always some independent, there was enough pool of money in the black community to be their own bank. But the mob was doing stuff too, and they, you know, so that's its own whole big story, which is a sideline. But in New York, you guys probably seen the movie Hoodlum, where Dutch Schultz saw when Prohibition ended and all the money that the mob made, the Italians made, and, well, Dutch Schultz wasn't Italian, but all of white organized crime made was going to need to be replaced. And he said, well, let's take the numbers from the blacks. And they did, because the white criminals, unlike the black criminals, they're still white. So they had a little more contacts with the crooked judges and the crooked police and the crooked bankers. So in the end, a black gangster really couldn't win, because the white criminals could bring much more of the legitimate, quote-unquote, world to bear in the battle behind them. And in Chicago, it was very, if you think of the mafia is the black man's friend, not that anybody would think that, but like what went on in Chicago with the gambling, one of the Jones brothers, so the Jones brothers were huge. They were the biggest policy wheel people. When they fled Chicago in the 40s, they had tens of millions of dollars overseas in the 40s, which is like having, you know, $1 billion now. So one of the Jones brothers caught a case. He did a couple years, and he was, I don't know if he was cellmates, but he was just locked up with and got cool with. This would have been in probably World War II times. I've done a story on this. I don't know the off the top of my head. It's very interesting. You can look it up. But anyways, he's in prison in the 40s with Sam Momo Giancana, who at the time was an up-and-coming member of the Chicago outfit, the Chicago Mafia family, went on to be the boss, who went on to be popped in the back of his head in his own house while cooking sausages and peppers right before he was to testify during the hearings about who killed John F. Kennedy. But that's yet another story. Go watch Killing Jimmy Hoffa, my documentary, for a little bit on that. But Sam Momo Giancana was with one of the Jones brothers who hipped him to just how lucrative and how to run the numbers business. And Momo took his new friendship with the black gangster to his own advantage when he got out. The Italians put the squeeze on the black numbers people, and I'm sure there were black numbers people in Chicago who hung on all along, smaller ones. Probably there's some now, but the big guys had to leave town or get killed, and the outfit took it over. So gambling, as far as crime being a bridge into legitimacy, well, black America should have already got that benefit 100 years ago. And a few did, some did. I mean, I know some black families that have been living in the nicest suburbs of Metro Detroit for several generations off of numbers money. But yeah, so what is your thoughts on the biggest people in hip hop? You know, you had alcohol, you saw Puffy. Puffy's whole income was getting paid $80 million a year to promote Ciroc. Now, interestingly, black people actually consume alcohol at a lower rate than the general population. Now, not in the hood, but the overall black population. So someone like Puffy was a way when businesses are sitting around and looking at new market opportunities, you're going to look at, oh, well, what demographic is buying less than the average? Maybe that's who we can target. So, starting with, I mean, I'm old enough to, like, in the mid-90s, when I started drinking, really, you know, like mid-90s, you know, you heard about, like, real gangsters and the guys getting when in the street was drinking Moet and, you know, I mean, and there was Hennessy and stuff, but it wasn't like an obsession. Like regular people in the hood, we were drinking like E&J, VSOP. There really wasn't like a bouginess that much about alcohol. That started from the rappers, just rapping about it. And Branson, the guy that brought high-grade weed to Harlem back in the day, who we did a long interview with Cavario and Courtney and me and him was out on the block there on 150th, 145th and St. Nicholas till 5 in the morning. Branson is the one who introduced, and Branson was a gangster. He introduced Biggie and Jay-Z to what's this in the yellow cellophane? Oh, this is Cristal. They got that from Branson. They got that from the streets. But that was real street gangster money showing the young rappers, oh, well, this is what we do. And of course, they took that whole lifestyle, you know. According to Branson, Biggie didn't know what that was till he showed it to him, and Jay-Z seen Biggie with it. Is that true? Is he misremembering? Maybe, but I kind of doubt it. That was a fun night. Go watch our video. Might be in my members only section. Thanks to Cavario for bringing us up there. So, yeah, black people drink less than the average. In surveys, one of the reasons, you know, they talk about more potential negative consequences. If you're black, you're more likely to be pulled over just in general by the police, so it makes drinking and driving riskier. Ironically, though, in the most depressed neighborhoods, they're full of liquor stores. So I think when you get outside of the inner city, like, black people, I guess, aren't really drinking nearly as much, as other Americans, which is good. But that's why someone like Puffy was used. The fame he got from hip-hop was used to sell alcohol to people that weren't spending that much on it. And now you have, I tell you, it's funny. I went to the University of Michigan, a lot of rich and girls, little hot college girls in Michigan, including African American that were from elite neighborhoods around the country. Chevy Chase, Maryland. If you were with them and they wanted to drink, they go get some Seagram's gin. They just wanted some alcohol. Nobody was trying to show their social status from expensive liquor. They were just college girls and wanted some liquor. As opposed to now, the poorer the neighborhood, the more bougie they are. Oh, I don't drink that, I only drink this. And they want stuff that's $30 a shot at the bar, and it's like, sweetheart, your house ain't worth $30. But tobacco, for the record. So, congratulations, I guess, to Nas. He's a part of the biggest casino in the United States now. Or gonna be. Jay-Z lost. What's your thoughts? We know Jay-Z used the Colin Kaepernick incident to get himself in charge of the Super Bowl halftime show. A lot of people think that he kind of placed himself as the spokesman or something for black people and interceded on the NFL's behalf and calmed down a lot of the negative feelings people were having towards the NFL based on what happened to Kaepernick, simply because he didn't want to. What did he do? He knelt. He didn't want to conform during the national anthem. He wanted to do it his own way. He was kicked out of the league, not really allowed to try to play again, and that's a whole other big story. Obviously, that's complicated, but a lot of people feel like Jay-Z just he got himself a personal reward in exchange for tamping down disgruntled feelings from some in the black community about the treatment of Colin Kaepernick or perhaps black professional athletes in general. What do you think about that? What do you think about hip-hop, which was always exciting because it was the voice of a voiceless group of people to some extent? Not anymore. The world's a lot different, but I'm old enough to remember, listen, 1985, young black people were not really, you weren't hearing what they had to say in public much at all. And then suddenly rap comes along. And, I mean, you can have a debate about what was being said and who was saying it and blah, 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 but at least they were being heard talking about something. So, yeah, so the legacy of hip-hop, is it casinos? Is it selling more liquor to black people? Or is this just capitalism as usual? Or probably a little bit of both. So I don't really have a value judgment on it. I find going to a casino to be a ridiculous way to spend your time, but lots of people like it. I tell you, the casinos in Detroit sure seem to have sucked the lifeblood out of whatever little money was left floating around. You go down to a casino, man, people just giving all their money away. Downtown Detroit, they're going to tell you downtown Detroit has been revitalized again. I remember when downtown Detroit was a lot different. Yeah, they had abandoned buildings. It was rough. There was stuff downtown Detroit. I liked it better then. There was a lot of black-owned businesses that aren't there now, and not that a black-owned business is better or inherently or whatever than a white-owned, but in a city that's 90% black, probably should be some black-owned businesses. But your homework assignment is look up what percentage does Nas own of this casino and what neighborhood is it in and what are the community's thoughts, or if you're from that part of Queens or you know about it, let me know in the comments. Al Prophet, as always, I got the boulders for your shoulders, American Dope.